This is a report from RawCut. On the 25th of February 2023, at the steps of the South Australian Parliament House in the state capital of Adelaide, the first advertised Adelaide Freedom Rally for 2023 occurred. Attending demonstrators witnessed speeches primarily concerning injuries and deaths after vaccinations, anti-smart city activism, and anti-World Health Organization activism. The event was presented by Kathy Scarborough, who began proceedings.
I applaud you all for being here today. We must keep this fight up, we must keep educating. I personally have been to more funerals than I care to have been to. I have more worries about elderly people in my life than I care to have. I feel very, very concerned for the captives in aged care facilities. I feel very, very concerned for the captive health workers. I feel concerned for the councils that still enforce mandates for their employees, and the City of Adelaide continues to be one of them. I'm sure we're all going to be waving more people goodbye out of our lives.
Following Kathy Scarborough was Grace Bawden.
Smart cities, Internet of Things, facial recognition, digital ID, social credit scores, perpetual vaccine passports, zero trust, 15-minute cities, eugenics, programs and more. These are the promises made by the World Economic Forum and United Nations as they superimpose their Great Reset over the top of our national constitution and sovereignty.
After Grace Bawden, Mike Williams gave demonstrators some scepticism about the people who usually occupy Parliament House.
And my son, fit, strong, healthy son, 31, he's come down with an injury as well through the second jab. So I'm going to, as much as I can, make these animals in here accountable and all the people that are running SA Health that are pushing it.
Later, Tim Dwyer provided demonstrators with insights into the importance of tenacity.
If you do not push back, if you do not say no, you have given your consent. Do you consent to being locked up in 12 minutes, 15-minute cities? Do you consent to being given fines by unlawful government acts? Do you consent to being treated like fools and idiots by your local council? But keep firing your arrows 1,000 at a time from 1,000 different directions. And do not consent. Have you got it? All right, let's say it. Do not consent. One more time. Do not consent.
Also attending the rally was a significant contingent of the local Russian community and friends, with the Australian-Russian media personality Simeon Boikov phoning in to praise demonstrators. Later, comedian Corey White provided demonstrators with his insights into the importance of the Australian worker.
What I love about this and the history of this country is it has always been the working class who've been the moral conscience of it. When it was the conscription referendums in the First World War, it was the working class who stood up and opposed it. When it was the conscription referendums in the Vietnam War, it was the working class who stood up and opposed it. In the Second World War, when the ships were being loaded with iron bound for Japan, it was the working class who stood up and opposed it. The people that I've met have really inspired me over the last 2 years, and I've taken a lot of inspiration from you, and I proudly identify as unvaccinated, and my pronouns are no regrets!
Soon after, a lawyer named Jay from Old Port Chambers spoke to demonstrators about what he sees to be a legal hypocrisy.
I'll tell you something I learned about employment law. You cannot be dismissed in this country if your boss directs you to do something dangerous. If he says to work in extreme heat, if he says to go put a bushfire out with a hose, if he says to walk in the middle of the street and do construction work while cars are going past, if he says you don't have to wear high-vis gear at night time and you get sacked, they'll give you your job back because it's a dangerous direction. But there's one direction that's dangerous that seems to pass that test and allow you to be sacked. And that's a direction to take an experimental therapeutic that can kill you. And that seems to be lawful and reasonable because it's safe and effective. Whenever you challenge them on that, well, can you explain to me why it's safe and effective? There's no answers and you get sacked anyway.
Also, Pastor Andrew Craig spoke to demonstrators on the importance of unity.
So what time is it? It's time to prepare, get the facts, get the information, write to your politicians, don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. Christ is coming is what I believe, and I believe that we must resist tyranny and fight for freedom. Let's do that for ourselves and for the people that we love. Let's cherish and protect the freedoms that we have. While we've got the freedom to speak out, let's raise our voice, keep on raising your voice, and may God grant us the courage and the wisdom that we all need. Thank you.
After the conclusion of speeches, rallygoers then marched en masse from Parliament House throughout the city of Adelaide holding placards and crosses, with the placards representing people who had been injured subsequently after having a COVID-19 vaccination, and
every one of these white crosses you see represents someone who took the vaccine and then died.
Marchers first moved towards Eastern Adelaide and the temporary festival district, then towards the centre of the city where they culminated in front of the Health Department building of the South Australian Government to make a symbolic attempt to confront state health officials. After, demonstrators made their way through the Rundle Mall shopping district, where they then held a moment of silence for the fallen. The rally was the last in a series of freedom rallies held around Australia in February 2023. From Adelaide, Australia, I'm Rhys Jarrett.